All right, good day, my friends. My name is Tracy Repchuk, and I'm the host of Reach Millions TV, an entrepreneurial lifestyle and learning channel where I will educate and introduce you to some of the powerhouses in their fields. As an entrepreneur for over 37 years, I've had the good fortune to appear in Forbes over 27 times, speak in 39 countries, appeared on NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, won awards from the Senate, the Assembly, the White House, and President Obama. I've written 9 #1 international best-selling books, and along the journey, I've reached millions with my message, and I know that's important for you too, which is why I created this show to give you specific trainings and introduce you to the people that can help you find more leads, make more sales, and reach millions with your message. You can find out more about me at tracyrepchuk.com and reachmillionsacademy.com. Now, today I am joined by an amazing friend of mine, Lisa Marie Platske. She left her federal law enforcement career to be the CEO of international leadership development company called Upside Thinking Inc. Lisa Marie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. It's so excited to be here with you. And you get to be with a friend. It's just, it's wonderful. And the last time we saw each other was in Costa Rica. So
it was, I know. I'm so excited. I'm hopefully getting back when travel opens up again. And yeah, we had so much fun down there. It's such a great area. And I learned a lot about you. And as a result of knowing more about what you do for people, your success, I really had to make sure that I had you on the show. Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the first question, how does one go from federal law enforcement to your current calling? Tell us when you discovered you needed to make this switch.
Well, from federal law enforcement to this calling, I'm not sure that I even go all the little intersections. I continue to look and go, wow, look at how that created that, which opened the door to that. I'm sure you really, you get that, and how sometimes when you have things happen when you're in your teens or your 20s, and then it informs you later in life in your 50s, and you go, wow, I didn't realize that I needed that on my journey. So I never thought that I'd leave law enforcement. I thought I would stay, loved it so much. And the transition for me really was when I had at the intersection of marriage. I never thought that I'd leave, and it was really courageous for me to leave my job. And I had been the fastest promoted officer after having a really hard time when the guys wanting to work with me. And then when my husband proposed, it was, well, how are we going to do this? And I had friends who said, usually people who they get married, they live in the same household. And that was sort of a foreign concept for me because we had lived in different states. But it really was my core values of what was most important to me personally, of freedom, fun, and flexibility, to go, how are we going to do this? How are we going to have our marriage work? And I think so often people wonder how they can make the money, let the money work, or the house work, or something external versus the relationships in life. And for me, I find that that's most important. And one of the reasons why you and I connect, why I just admire your work.
Well, thank you for that. And it's interesting you mentioned, you and your husband, sounds like you had a long distance relationship in the beginning. So did me and my current husband,
Yeah.
It's fun. I think from that, and I don't know how you found it, but when we were apart, the communication really enhanced the understanding, and I really got to know him so much more than maybe if he was like right beside me all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's it. We would we'd see each other every 3 weeks, and we would have long conversations that were over the phone, but we wouldn't really see each other. And that allowed for asking questions that perhaps if he were more readily available every single evening, that wouldn't have happened. And my life was so busy working in law enforcement. I worked some long hours. I worked different shifts. And so did he, because he also was in law enforcement. So you end up with when people speak about quality versus quantity, that's exactly what it was. And I don't know that when looking back, the level of emotional intelligence from when I first took the job to getting married to where I am today, like it's been such a thread. And so that was a contributing factor, the ability to communicate and communicate in a way that was deeper and deeper.
Yeah, and it's funny. I remember back in those days too, we would have $650 long distance phone call bills.
Yeah.
That doesn't even exist like
Right.
today.
Right. Because it wasn't unlimited. You had to pay per minute. Yeah.
Every minute you were paying. And so talk about really expressing your love at that time,
It's true. It's true. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true. I remember that.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
funny. Now, you're an award-winning leadership expert in human behavior who has received accolades from the White House, the United States Small Business Administration, and the International Alliance for Women, and you've been recognized as one of the top 100 women making a difference in the world. So what have you been doing to garner such amazing accolades?
Thank you. It really is humbling. I look at my life and I go, how did I get here? Tracy, when I first started in law enforcement, the guys didn't want to work with me, and they did not by any means, love who I was. And I had always been recognized, when you are an A student or when you are an achiever, there's this drive to be the best. And so I had the expectation that I would do well on the job, and that just wasn't the case. And so I took this leadership assessment, and when I got the results back, the instructor shared that I was a 0. And the way she shared it was very painful. It just wasn't a safe space to share that. And so it took me on a journey of me to really go, okay, if you don't change this, then you could be smart and tough and strong and right, but you're going to be alone and dead. And that allowed my career to do well. But then stepping out into the business world without having the business background and having the background in law enforcement, it went back to me to going to those pieces that I learned from the 0, which were all around connection and positioning, making people, which is what we've talked about with relationships, making people more important than anything else. And so that level of connection has allowed me to have, what I call my $1 billion database of friends with business benefits. And so through connection, it's allowed me to open doors in places that I myself couldn't have ever imagined. And that's what I believe has brought the recognition, the idea of that positioning and that connection to other people, where when you put others first and you engage in conversations solely for, not because you're going to get something, not because you think they're going to do something for you, not because you think they're going to give you something or even be your client, rather just simply saying, I have information, I have something to seek that could make the world better. How may I help you? And I find it interesting because that's actually how the door opened with the Small Business Administration. It's how I actually ended up getting the letter from the White House, where it came out of the blue, where somebody had put me in for an award. And I went, wow, I mean, just simply by showing up. Now, sometimes the work is in nonprofit boards. Sometimes it's through, helping an individual, somebody who works in a company or somebody who owns a business. It's just that I always found that for as much as I gave out, it would come back 100-fold. And so I look at it as connection for the sake of connecting, simply to connect and to utilize your gifts, has made such a world of difference for me. And I'm sure you find the same thing.
I absolutely do. It's interesting. You brought up like that test you took, right? I will never forget a test I took in I don't know if it was early high school or maybe grade 8, where it says, what are you going to be when you grow up, right? And it said to me, I'm going to be a secretary. I get to be a legal secretary. And I'm like, oh no, that's not happening. Where I pictured all these awesome professions that were on there were going to pop up for me. And I was like, oh, that's not happening. That became a driver, a little bit like you. And the other driver we have in common was I was that straight A student, loved to be teacher's pet, needed kind of those accolades and reinforcements. And then I went into the man's world as well, right? I went into software. I started a software company at the age of 19. Then I became a certified management accountant. That was all men. Then I joined Board of Governors. That was all men. Then I joined the World Internet Marketing Summit. That was all men. And so it became very, as you say, you had to constantly, one, feed yourself, but two, then you had to really go be above and beyond if we wanted to be noticed, right? Or wanted to earn respect or peer recognition amongst a male-dominated industry. I truly understand what you were saying there, in that you had to go above and beyond. And then that leadership test you took was just a gift, right? An amazing way to say, hey, you are destined for such greatness. You need to understand. Now, obviously, she didn't just kind of convey the message properly, as so many teachers do, right? How many times did we encounter maybe a teacher too that would say, oh my God, you'll never be an artist, and they crush an artist's dream. That happens, right? One or the other, it crushes or it drives. And I think it takes a very unique moment to allow the possibility of that drive. And so I so appreciate the sharing of that story. Now, as an international best-selling author in 5 countries, you've spoken on the critical aspects of exceptional leadership. I'd love you to touch on your process and framework for authentic leadership.
Thank you. This is something, Tracy, that I really came from wanting a shortcut. My background was in law enforcement. So, what do business people who are successful, what do they do? So I began interviewing. I've always been a researcher at heart. I love researching and discovering what's already been done, what works, what hasn't worked. And so I started interviewing people, sitting down, informational interviews, just, would you be willing to have a conversation with me? Would you be willing to share a little bit about what you're doing, about how long you've been in business? And I'd have these informational interviews and I went, wow, there are certain themes that are just showing up. And I got out a little scratch pad, a little piece of paper, and started to write down the themes that I would see over and over again. And there were 7 of them. And I had them all. So interestingly, I was like, oh, they're all words that begin with P, which just seemed to line up for me. Okay. And so these 7 pillars of leadership have been what I have gone into organizations and taught, as well as the 100,000 plus people that I've coached and mentored and trained. And the first one is to start with a written plan, understanding the end in mind. And so important to my own journey, really, like where is it that you're going? Because how do you inform how to get there if you really don't have any idea of where you're going? And so that written plan, what I find so interesting is that people would get hung up on, well, I'm going to type it out, or how it's going to look, or does it have to be a certain way? And the answer is no. It's just that it is important that you actually write it out, because there's something in the brain when you physically write something versus typing it. And then the second theme that I saw was about understanding your personality. They were people who really understood who they were, who they weren't, and what it is that they wanted most. So that really understanding how they're wired. The third pillar that showed up over and over again is one we've talked about a little bit, and that's creating powerful partnerships. There were people who were really masterful at connection. And so that was also interesting as access points to open doors. And then the fourth pillar was to live your priority. And it didn't matter what the priority was. They each had something that was their most important priority. And I remember years ago having a client who missed her daughter's wedding, and people were aghast, like, how could this happen? And yet she had this priority with regards to generational wealth. And she was in the middle of a business deal that her family understood. Now, someone from the outside who has a different priority or a different value might look at that aghast and say, how could that be a good thing? And yet, what I don't have any judgment with it. It's just live your priority, understand what your number one priority is, not priorities, and ensure that all of your energies, your time, your money actually goes to fulfilling that priority. And each of these interviews that the individuals I spoke to did that so brilliantly. The fifth one is creating a meaningful and memorable presence, that word presence. And so this was external, like putting out into the world, like, what you look like, what you speak, the words you use, all of that, your vibration, your vibrational frequency. And then it was also the components of being able to understand that you're positioning or depositioning yourself. So what to say, who to say it to, when to say it. And presence also was about being present, like that attitude of gratitude, really being present in the moment. When you and I talked about this, it's like I make sure that I clear my office and I clean the space so I can just be fully present with you and with those that are listening, and just fully be here. No distractions, no pings, no nothing. So that memorable presence. And then the sixth area is evaluating your progress and profit, ensuring that you're constantly looking and examining. And then the seventh one is investing in personal and professional development, ensuring that, there have been people that I've gone to hear speak, and you probably have too. And it's like, I heard them 10 years ago and they're saying the same thing. And I go like, didn't anything happen in life between then and now? Like, there's gotta be something more or depth. And so these 7 pillars are a framework. However, I evolve as a leader, and so do the people I work with. They evolve, and so does the work and the depth of it. And within the priority one, there's 7 areas of well-being, because for me, I want to work with as many people on the planet and allow them to transform into being the most optimal version of whoever they're destined to be. And that's so that they can make the bigger difference on the planet. And you can't do that if you're not well. You can't live your priority if you're not well. So
Agreed. And wow, first, thank you for sharing all of those. This was fantastic. People watching are just going to be, really wanting more and really wanting to go deeper on all of those. And I love them because each of those are so deep. Now you touched on that little, I've trained kind of, over 100,000 leaders. You're a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, me too, and you're a regular contributor to Forbes, same type of thing. It's why we travel in the same circles, right? And so you've gone through your steps, which I'm assuming that's one of the ways that you help people. And then of course you even, countered with the health issue up in the priorities, right? Yeah, we don't put that as a priority, and everything collapses if health isn't stable. I love that. Are there any other seeds you can tell us for how you really help somebody?
Tracy, I love that you ask about if there's anything else, because that's all the tactical parts. And much like you and your work, there are these elements that are just part of the life experience that are, I've got psychosomatic training, and I bring in family constellations, and I mix business practicality with spirituality, and use my intuition and channel the Holy Spirit and pray, and really am in the inquiry of what is the direction that is best for someone. They get to decide. I simply listen, and then am able to see some of the small shifts that need to be made in order to have a big impact or to make a bigger difference on the planet. And so, in the beginning, I thought, gosh, the 7 pillars, this is it. I interviewed these people. This is wonderful. And the more that I would be with clients, I would go, gosh, if something didn't happen in a really short period of time, I went, there's something else. There's something missing. Sometimes it's vulnerability. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes it's generosity. It's like these little tweaks. And so it's not like the people that I often work with haven't already tasted success. They haven't already been successful. It's that, how do you do that last 5%? How do you do that 7% where it could just make this massive, massive, massive difference? And so I find that there are a lot of modalities that are out there that just inform the tactical, that really are about the beingness of leadership. It's the reason why my business is so high touch and so customized, because it's not about the mass formula, which is important. You know, that formulas are important, and I have used them in my business. I like rinse and repeat. It's just that there's these tweaks that come from many, many, decades of studies in modalities that are outside the scope of what would be traditional leadership.
I love that, because it rings true to, one, why we connect, right? And two, the same thing I do. I do a 360-degree holistic view kind of on your business, because, your marriage, your relationship with your kids, all of these other pieces, they show up everywhere that you are. And
exactly.
we can't just talk about one thing all the time, because this other stuff leaches in. And when it leaches in, it can disrupt, as you say, success. It can disrupt somebody showing up. It can disrupt that extra 5%, and them being able to kind of just move over or move to that next level that they've been yearning for. Often that glass ceiling is simply something. And I often take a look at, because I look at the whole person as well, just like you, there's a weak link, right? And it may have nothing to do with their business. Everything might be right on target, but over here, there's a problem. And within that problem, it's causing the obstacle right where, they're trying to go. It's interesting, because if we were just technicians, well, heck, you can get that anywhere, right? Go to Fiverr, go to, go Upworks, go anywhere you want. But to me, and I think that's why also we're part of similar groups, right? Where we are, because we talk about that connectivity, and we talk about the need for integrating spirit, integrating, that vision of us being more than just this, right? And really having more of those answers. I loved what you just shared there, because of course it spoke to exactly how I operate, and that's not always the case, right? There's so many people out there, and kudos to you that you're getting that job done. And this is why, again, someone will come to perhaps us for that extra level mentorship or coaching. It's very cool. And then this probably goes to the name of your company, which I love, Upside Thinking. So tell us how that came to be.
Well, upside thinking actually was my husband's brainchild. Like, he had thought after the government, he was going to leave and he was going to start his own company. And then when we got married, he said, why don't you take the name? And upside thinking, I went, it's his idea. But what it spoke to me was that the up and upside refers to so many different pieces for me. The up refers to seeing the upside, seeing, that it's an attitude piece. The up refers to connecting in with divine wisdom that's up above. And the up refers to taking what you spoke about with that 30,000-foot view and looking. The up speaks to just so many different facets. And I see that the thinking part is smaller. Like, you need the mind. However, if you're so much in the head with the thinking, then it can really cloud the doing. And so that's why we lead with the upside. And for me, that name on so many levels was important for me to keep. And the other thing too is, honestly, Tracy, it keeps me honest. You and I both have, we've got responsibilities with family and parents and caregiving and life, and that when you have a company name that's Upside, it's a reminder, like it's a personal reminder to me to tap into that. And it's really hard to wake up and go into your office and have a downside day when you're committed to upside thinking. So there's also the personal aspect for me too.
I love it. I love that it has a piece of your husband in there. That's absolutely beautiful. And it's so funny because our company name is Inner Surf International. Well, inner actually meant for the spirituality, for the kind of the connectivity, and for operating kind of through, versus
Sure.
on. And then the surf that came, we made that company name change in like 1992 when the internet wasn't even the internet yet, but we saw we were going to be online in this area where we were surfing the web, right? That was a common kind of term that was said by that. And so Inner Surf emerged from that kind of very similar thinking. And so it's kind of fun to just compare and see the depth of what we were doing and talking about so long ago, quite frankly, right? Because we've both been around for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Cool.
I never thought, I just couldn't have in my wildest dreams. I look now and go, wow, like I just, even hearing you say some of the things, I go, how did this, and then it's just that intersection of all of those pieces, even our conversations in Costa Rica, like it's really beautiful just how divine guidance leads you to exactly where you need to be.
I agree. I love it as well. Very good. Well, I really want to just kind of thank you, Lisa Marie, for being on Reach Millions TV, for sharing your amazing and beautiful story and insights with our followers. So what is the best way for viewers to continue that connection with you and the conversation?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And they can find me at upsidethinking.com. So www.upsidethinking.com. And then /stay-connected is one possibility. Stay-connected. To me, there's actually an opportunity to be able to continue the conversation. You can find me on social media, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and oh, Tracy, I so love connection. So hearing from people and getting to connect further is always a blessing.
I agree.
And Tracy, online, I've got an influential leadership blueprint that if for people to take advantage of, it's actually there's a document to fill out, and it's got also some additional research that will give you clarity and permission and courage and insights. And so if your listeners are interested in that, they can find that on the website too.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, be sure to connect with Lisa Marie Platske, and to help you reach millions, be sure to grab my free gifts and best resources at jointracy.com. So stay tuned to this channel for more exciting episodes of Reach Millions TV. And until next time, I'm Tracy Repchuk, and here's to reaching millions with your message. Bye for now.